right, everyone, welcome to the White Room.
Yeah.
Welcome to the White Room. This is Tennessee Wildcast. I'm Doug Markham, Jason Harmon. We'll introduce our special guest here in a minute. Probably already seen his name.
Yeah.
Commissioner Bill Cox.
We gave it away early.
We're going to have a good discussion with him today. This is going to be our studio. It is our studio. We just got a whole lot of work to do, right?
Yeah, we're going to spruce it up a little bit, get rid of these white walls, hang a few more things on the walls, and make it look more like a cabin or a studio.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Outdoorsy.
We've been everywhere, from Kentucky Lake to the Region 2 parking lot to all over the place. But we're going to settle in here eventually. We're still going to travel sometimes, all right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, this is Tennessee Wildcast, as I said, and it's your show. It's about the agency. It's about what we do. It's about the resource. And more and more folks are learning about it, but we got a ways to go. We want folks to learn more about this show. It's a podcast. We're on all the time. If you want to listen to us at midnight because you can't sleep, well, you can get up at midnight and listen to us.
You can listen to Jason and Doug and whoever else is on the show.
That's
Mr.
right.
Mr. Bill Cox.
Mr. Bill Cox, yeah. Just a little bit on current events. Not a whole lot going on right now. All our seasons have been set. Commissioner Cox had a lot to do with that because he is a commissioner, but they're set. And if you haven't been out to our website at tnwildlife.org, you can go out there and see all the seasons. We put out a one-page summary on most of the ones that you worry about. Mm-hmm. And it will tell you when deer season is, bear season is, rabbit season is, on and on and on.
All right, yep.
And then also, it is the boating time of year. We're into the serious boating time of year. Our accidents are down pretty good. I think folks are paying attention. We've been doing a lot of work to try to tell them to wear those life jackets.
Right.
Here in Middle Tennessee, we have had a couple of drownings. Both of them know wearing their life jackets on a lake called Percy Priest. If you're from Middle Tennessee, you know where that is. But we want you to wear those life jackets and get out there and be safe. So far, knock on wood, pretty good year so far.
Yeah, so far pretty good. Just make sure you keep them on those kids. That's really important. Even the adults need to wear them, but
they do. But the law is 12 or under.
Yeah.
If you're 12 and under, you got to wear that jacket if you're moving. And that means if you're sitting on the bank and you're not tied to it, you got to have on a life jacket.
Exactly.
So, and one other thing, the kayak folks that are growing in popularity, that love doing their kayaks. You have to follow the same rules as the folks in the big boats, and that means if you're out at nighttime on the boat, you got to have those lights on, okay? You got to figure out a way to light up that kayak, because if you're out there in the middle and somebody runs over and you don't have your lights on, it's your fault.
And we may have discussed this last week, but we're going to put together a video on what paddleboarders and kayakers need to do, when they're on the water, what they need to have, and the regulations on that.
Yeah, we'll be doing that. Keep an eye on the website, because we're putting a lot of stuff out there that we want you to see. We have a 13-member commission that governs the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. There's a couple ex officio members on there, too, whatever that means. But we got 13 people that are there all the time. And one of them is Commissioner Bill Cox here from Collierville. He's been on the commission, I believe, 4 years this time.
Going on 4 years, that's right.
Going on 4, and you're one of the rare folks that actually have had 2 terms. So you were on here last time.
Lucky guy.
Yeah, lucky guy. When was your last time on here?
I was on from 2000 to 2000 through 2006.
Okay. Chairman
2005.
Okay. And for whatever reason, you came back again.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's a great experience, and if you like hunting and fishing in the outdoors, and you get to work around the guys that are experts and that do it for a living, and make a contribution, it's great.
All right.
I really had a nice time.
Well, let's talk about that. The commission has been around a long time. It's a position that is appointed often by the governor, or there's a few seats that are done by the House and the Senate. All that's just a bunch of shop talk, but it's still how you get on here. Once you get on here, though, you represent sportsmen. How does that work? You're from Collierville, the western part of the state. What does that mean?
There are some at-large positions that the Senate and the House speakers appoint, but the governor's 9 appointments represent 3 in each Grand Division and each congressional area. Mine's 9, so I've got the southwest part of the state, Shelby County, Fayette, Hardeman, Chester, Lauderdale. I don't want to leave anybody out, but you don't really, you concentrate on what's going on in your part of the state, but you're representing the entire state and concerned about as concerned about what's going on in Bristol as I am in Memphis.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, a lot of our management has statewide implications,
sure.
right? A lot of things
Absolutely.
that don't just occur in small areas. Tell us a little bit about Collierville. I visited you there the other day. It's the first time I'd ever been there. Neat place.
It is. Collierville is it's an old town. We've got a great historic area downtown, and and where I grew up, and I think Collierville now has about 48,000 people.
Wow.
And it's
In
really,
Shelby
it's
County.
Really, in Shelby County, in eastern Shelby County, it's really growing. The changes in the school systems there. We've got our own school system, as some of the other suburban towns have now, and the demand for housing has skyrocketed because of the good schools. And we've got a great police department, great fire department. So the difference between Collierville and some of the other towns is we've got a square where the old commercial district was, with buildings around the park. And if I'm not mistaken, we're the only town in the state that has a park without a courthouse, because we're not the county seat. Memphis is the county seat, but you can go to some of these other beautiful towns, Fayetteville, Somerville, Bolivar,
Yeah.
Brownsville. They've all got the same setup, but they've got a courthouse. Ours doesn't have a courthouse, and so we've got the entire park, and there's concerts on Thursday night, and it's a great small town atmosphere, and people say it's kind of like Mayberry.
All right. Well, I surely liked it while I was there with the railroad track running right by your beautiful home there. There's another thing there, a person there that's been important to our industry, and we had him on the show not long ago, and that's Bill Dance right there in Collierville.
Yep, he lives just north of town, and I've known Bill for 35, 38 years or something, and he is he does so much, not only for himself and the promotion of his show and the things that he has accomplished, makes a living doing it. He does things for our agency and for getting people involved in fishing and the outdoors that nobody knows about. That he has been such a great influence in giving of his time and of himself that is just amazing.
He is a nice guy. We were talking before the show started. I've met a lot of the guys in the industry that are pretty famous in the fishing world, and you meet them personally, and you kind of draw how you feel about them. And most of them are relatively nice folks. But Bill Dance, he's never been anything but kind to me and everybody I've seen him talk to.
He's like that to everybody. He's never met a stranger. He appreciates the support that people give him by watching his show and buying the products that he promotes. But his show is different from others, that it's an educational show. Not only does he doesn't come on there and smile and say, look what I caught. He wants to tell you how he caught it, where he caught it, the conditions of the water, the lure he's using, what's his presentation, what are the electronics he's using, what time of day it is. He gives you the whole package. If you watch his shows, you can learn how to fish, bass fish or anything else. He loves catfishing and all the other, but
now he's out on the ocean.
But his show has lasted because it's an educational show.
I agree with that, and he's done so many of them. While we were in the studio the other day, and I forget the name of the gadget. I'm not being a very good sponsor for him, but he showed us something where you can attach line without tying it, where it actually fused the line together, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. I'm sorry, I don't know what that was either, but it was a new product that was.
Stronger
you don't need a knot. You put it in there and it fuses it together.
And he says it's stronger than any knot you could tie.
Yeah,
so
I wish I remember what it was, but I can't.
I do too. I thought you were going to get one before it's over. You're working him pretty good. Anyway.
I told him I didn't need one as long as he had one. So
This is true. This is true. All right. Let's get back to the commission. You guys have had to deal with a lot through the years. To me, observing the commission's, it's in good shape. I mean, there's not a lot of controversy that goes on with the commission, I don't think, anymore. There are a few little things that flare up from time to time. What's going on right now in the terms of the resource? We're going to talk about money in a little bit, but in terms of resource, deer, turkey, what's going on that concerns you the most?
Well, for current events, I think the what we've been talking about just lately, the chronic wasting disease that is affecting a lot of the states, Colorado, Wisconsin, but it's found in Arkansas, and it was kind of a surprise to them and to everybody else, and it's not contained at this point, and they're finding new cases around, and it's different, a little bit different than Virginia. They've got about 4 counties in the northeastern part of Virginia, and they just had 2 more finds last year, but they are in the same containment area. So Arkansas has caused us to have some long discussions about what we need to do to react, and the agency and Chuck Yost have put together a plan, that reaction plan, to help prevent us from having it affect our deer, and a reaction plan to what happens if it does. So, we're looking at all the tools in our toolbox to determine what we can best do to stop it from coming to Tennessee. And there are not a lot of things we can do, but there are a few things that we can do that we feel like are proactive.
Okay. I have this feeling that one day it's going to happen here. I hope it doesn't. But is it a feeling that's shared among the commission that we're facing the reality one day, or do you believe that we can stop it, that we can stop it somehow from crossing our borders? That's
a tough question. I had somebody tell me 10 or 12 years ago, when they were dealing with this in the Midwest, that it's just a matter of time till it's everywhere. It's not if, it's when. That's probably true, but if we treat this, and some of the discussion we had on a conference call last week, that we've got a variety of members of the commission, from lawyers to business people. We got 2 doctors, and the doctors are brought the comparison to hazardous material that they deal with in their businesses, from the way they deal with hypodermic needles and blood, and the care they have to take, and the disposal that they have of their things. If you relate that to a hazardous material, whether it's a hide or a head or however you treat the deer, and properly disposing of it. So that was a new angle that we had not ever talked about, the way to talk about CWD and possibly affected carcasses. If we can educate the hunter and the taxidermist and the processors that this is potentially hazardous material that you're dealing with, and you need to handle it properly, dispose of it properly. Which, by the way, the meat's not affected. You can eat the meat. That's not a very, very sick deer with CWD is emaciated, and you probably you either might not kill it, or you wouldn't eat it if you saw it.
If you saw it, you might kill it to get it out of its misery.
You might do that, but I doubt you would eat it. So, whether it's closing state borders that have CWD to prevent importation, it's already against the law to import live deer. And if we treat our own deer like a hazardous material, and that sounds bad, but if you respect the possibility that it could happen, then, and properly handling, disposing, the research says that the infected areas of this, where these deer are, when they are in an area and they leave there, they urinate on the ground, and grass grows in that dirt, and then another deer eats the grass. That deer will become infected with the prions that stay in the soil and stay in the. So there's another question now: if we cut hay off of land that is infected with CWD, is that hay infected? We don't know whether that's true or not. So there's still some questions out there. So I think that's a kind of a big deal.
Okay. Well, I know a few years ago the agency, and you can tell me what the commission did, but the Tennessee Wildlife Federation, a lot of sportsmen fought hard to stop Tennessee from having its native deer enclosed in pens and used commercially. What was the commission's view on that? And obviously it was the right choice.
Well, none of us like deer farming, and the first cases of CWD were around a commercial deer farm, and the cause, or wherever it originated, I don't think science knows how it got here, but it originated around a deer farm, and commercially breeding and selling and transporting live cervids, which is what a deer is against the law in Tennessee. And the commission realized that was in Arkansas farms deer, and all of a sudden now they've got CWD
and got it.
So
worse than they realized.
Yes. Somebody brought a deer in that was infected and affected their areas, is what I suspect, and whether it's that or one crossed the line from Missouri or whatever, it's because Missouri's got infected areas. So the commission was pretty much that's a slam dunk to because this is serious, and of course we've got captive elk that the Department of Agriculture manages and enforces, and I hope they're doing a really good job. But
which is a cervid, right?
It is a cervid, and we've opened the communication with them based on what we've talked about last week. In Arkansas's case, that's another arrow in the quiver that we might work with them to be more diligent around their elk farms for the transportation and the movement and that kind of thing.
Okay. All right. So that's a big issue, and the chronic wasting disease plan has been written, and we're going to put it on our website at some point, so everybody can read it. We want sportsmen to be able to see what would happen if we had to take that kind of action, and you don't want it to have it happen. A lot of work went into restoring deer and elk, and you got to go out and pretty much kill an area of the population.
Yeah, and it's we didn't talk about what happens, but it affects the deer, and it's a brain disease. It basically eats holes in the brain, and the deer dies. It's fatal, 100%. And whether the disease kills the animals, in some states they have tried to eliminate it by having mass killings or shootings of the deer herd to reduce the deer herd by 40% or something, and that hadn't worked. But the disease spreads, and it will kill a large portion of the deer, and that'd be devastating to any state that gets affected.
Okay, moving on a little bit here. Who calls you the most, Commissioner? Are you the representative for the sportsmen in your portion of West Tennessee that you talked about a few minutes ago? Who calls you? Does the fisherman call you, the hunter call you, the deer hunter, the turkey hunter, the bass angler, the crappie angler? Who calls Commissioner Cox most of the time wanting to get stuff done?
I don't get as many calls as a lot of areas in the state, and I kind of joke that I keep everything kind of quiet down in my area. But, it depends on what may be coming up. If the media, if we're considering, or the agency's considering recommending, or the commission's considering making a change in the bass length limit at Pickwick, or the deer from buck limit from 3 to 2, whatever the hot button issue is at the time are the ones you get the emails and the phone calls. So I don't get a lot of calls. I get more calls, I suppose, from people who they either want to know the law. I mean, as soon as I got appointed, everybody wants to ask me what the law is about this and that. I said, wait a minute now. I'll give you an 800 number to call, but I don't know the law. So I get calls about that. I get calls about how to get involved, and I refer them to someone, or our website, or the Jackson office, which is in our region, and try to help them find what they need to do to be involved in whatever outdoor it is, if it's hunting or fishing or SCTP or whatever they might want to do. I refer them to the right person.
Even the only thing I saw this last time that was close to controversial is the antlerless. The change in the antlerless length limit. Now if it breaks the hairline, it's considered a buck.
It is.
Not even a lot of controversy this time over there.
And I got a few emails about that, but it was not centered in just the counties that I represent. It was just most everybody got the same emails from the same people. I didn't get specific just to me, but that was something that people had an issue with, and I understand, because you have to look more closely. So, but other states do it, and our hunters are smart. They're not, they'll know how to do that. I mean, it's not something I don't think is necessarily unfair. You just have to pay a little more attention.
Have you seen sportsmen through their solicitations of commissioners and by the way, they're easy to get in touch with. You can go to our website, and every one of them's telephone numbers are listed out there, and probably email addresses too. It's on our website, right on the home page. Easy to find. But have you seen a sportsman through the years, through your time or two, get what they wanted when they solicited, at least in large numbers?
Yeah, I've seen that influence the commission several times. I mean, if we're thinking about making a change that is especially if it's wildly unpopular, my job, as the way I see it, is I represent the public. The agency and is theoretically the agent. Of course, human beings are human beings, but the agency is supposed to give the agency the biology. and the recommendations of how we accomplish the goals that have been set out for deer and turkeys and fish and habitat and conservation, whatever that is. Give me the biology, and then I balance that with what the public would like to do. If we wanted to go to, if the biology says, and I think you would probably find that for the health of the resource, setting a limit of X would be fine, but if the public wants Y, I have to balance those two to make sure the resource will be okay if we do that. If we like shooting hen turkeys in the fall, that's popular, it's fun. We just closed that down to 1 because there's a concern about turkey. Well, a lot of the people wanted to keep 2 or 3 or 4. The agency said we need to cut it to 3, I think. We were concerned enough, and we were going to spend some federal money on a 4-year, 6-year study. That made me concerned enough that if we're spending that kind of money, then killing the girls in the fall is not a smart thing to do. So we took it a step further, and even though 3 might have been precautionary enough, I got a lot of calls from people that wanted to cut it out completely.
Well, I think
that was influenced my decision.
When I was reading, I read a lot of the comments that were sent in from sportsmen when we were soliciting those comments, and the ones that I read the most were on turkey and wanting us to do something about the bag limits on turkeys. So I suppose they did play a pretty good.
It does, and if to influence, and not that an email doesn't, but writing letters, you say, well, they don't listen to us and they don't pay attention to that. That's not true. Just because we don't do what you ask us to do doesn't mean that we're not listening and asking the agency for their input and weighing that against. When one user group asks to change something, and another part of either that user group or another user group is affected, then we have to make the decision to balance to be fair to all user groups. So somebody came several years ago and wanted to change crow season of all things. I thought crow season was open all the time, but it's not. It's migratory, so it's a season. So we had several people want to do this, but after that discussion, we had calls from the other people in that user group. So we changed some things, but not as much as they wanted. But if you want to affect a change for something that hadn't come up, you need to rally your troops, write some emails, be cognizant of other user groups, come to the meetings. I know it's hard because they're typically Thursday and Friday, they're during the week and you can't take off work, but you need to write the commission with reasonable, fact-based requests that you've thought about, and you get a group, to lobby basically, and then we bounce it off the agency to see how that affects the resource. I want to exploit the resource as much as possible. I want everybody to do everything they want to do until it negatively affects another user group or the resource, especially. If I have a hard decision between this and that, I'm always going to vote to take care of the resource first, and not what's popular.
Okay. All right. We got about 5 minutes left in the segment. We got to talk about money. Okay.
Okay.
You are the chairman of the Outreach Retention Committee, and that's why we've got Commissioner Cox in today. We've got a meeting where we're going to be talking about how to attract more people to the outdoors world. Seems to me like it'd be easy. I can't imagine growing up not being in the outdoors, but there's a lot of people that aren't now, and so there's a reason for that. We aren't in the business, a recreational business, but we are a business, and even though we're government, we have to be funded some way, and then we happen to be funded almost completely by sportsman dollars. And so, Commissioner, is that the number one issue with you? Should be the number one issue with the Wildlife Agency?
I think that to continue to do the good works the agency does, and we've got an outstanding agency, I'd put our agency on balance with anybody. There are other state agencies that do some things better than what Tennessee does, but as a whole, there is nobody that can beat our agency in performance of across the board. Now, to do that, you have to have money. A lot of state agencies get part of the sales tax revenue. Arkansas, Virginia, Missouri. There's a formula they have that when you buy a shotgun or outdoor equipment or whatever, that you pay sales tax and the state gets part of that. Well, they have invested that like 1/8 of 1% back to their wildlife agency to do more good things, to get more people involved and hopefully sell more licenses and make more money. So to keep doing what we're doing, we've got to go to a model like that, or we've got to sell more licenses. So the retention and recruitment committee's job is to try to help the agency with the best ideas and to retain the hunters and fishermen we've got through their programs and their outreach, or to recruit children, men, women. It's a big spot that we're making an effort because a lot of women like the outdoors and they don't know how. So there's a Becoming Outdoors woman that helps. That is probably the most important thing we can do long term, is try to get people to. If you're not involved in hunting and fishing, you could be. There's plenty of places you can go for research on our website and find out about it. If you just like to watch birds in your backyard, or you like to bird watch and walk the trails, or if you like to canoe and you like to clean rivers, and we've got an environmental group, we've got boating, we've got all. If you want to help, buy a license. We get a federal match. There's a federal fund up there from excise tax that funds us back. If you buy a $35 hunting and fishing license, you don't have to hunt and fish, but that money goes to enhance habitat, conservation, environmental, and the federal government matches that with $14 or $15 per license. So you can make a $50 impact with a $32 or $33 investment.
Are we running out of hunters? Are we running out of fishermen? Is that the problem, or where lies the problem?
I think we've got.
Is it just inflation?
I think the opportunity for growth is probably more in fishing because there's more access to water. But we've got a lot of land. We need to take a look at, in my opinion, how it's managed and the opportunities offered, the open seasons and that kind of thing. But with the competition for view sports, video games, every kid you see is looking at a phone. We have the urbanization of a lot of areas that when I grew up, it was a country town. And I used to ride a horse up to the drugstore and get a soft drink. So that's being outside. You can't just let your kids go wandering now, except out in the rural areas. It's still pretty good, but in the cities, that's a little harder to do. And a lot of parents just don't have the time with working parents, and that's a competition between all that.
I personally think you always need to somehow go through the parents to get them. I'm not sure how that's done. I know one thing. I like this phone, but I'm glad I didn't have it when I was 12.
Yeah.
Because I'm afraid I would have been on it too.
Well, you teach your kids that hunt and fish, and when they get grown, you won't have to go look for them. They'll be good kids.
They'll be good kids.
Well, we hadn't hit what Mr. Cox likes to do. He hadn't talked about hunting or fishing or anything.
You got about a minute and a half. And I should have done that. That was on the list.
What's your favorite thing to do in the outdoors, and how'd you get introduced to it?
My favorite thing is to do in the outdoors, and we've got a new opportunity to be drawn for a bow elk hunt. But my favorite sport is elk hunting with a bow and arrow.
You should see his man Drew. It looks really good. He's got some nice ones.
And I turkey hunt, which is the same sport. Spring turkey hunt's the same sport as bow hunting for elk, except an elk can smell you. So I like turkey hunt. I fish some. I don't fish a lot. I had a boat one time, and it was a great day when I bought it. It was a better day when I sold it.
I understand.
But I do fish some, and I turkey and deer hunt. But my favorite passion is bow hunting elk.
Okay. And how old were you when you started? Just hunting, period, or fishing?
I was later. I was probably deer hunting. I probably started when I was about 27 or 8 years old.
Wow. Okay. So there's hope.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, Commissioner. Sure appreciate you being here today.
I'm glad you have me.
And care that you care about the agency and making us be around for a long time.
Thank you.
All right, Jason.
Well, Doug, you can find this show on tnwildlife.org. We're there all the time. Yeah. Watch previous shows. This show will be up soon, and hope you enjoyed this edition.
Yeah, those changes we talked about in all the deer seasons, Chuck Yost did a piece on it a couple weeks ago, still out there. If you haven't seen it, take a look at it, and we'll see you with another show next week.
Yep. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.